Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I'm Alessio Ponzio. I'm one of the member of the Queer Caucus of the American Association of Italian Studies. I'm an assistant, I hope associate, an assistant professor in modern European history and history of gender and sexuality at the University of Saskatchewan. And we're here today to have a conversation with Rodney Wilson, who is the founder of the LGBT History Month US. I'm also going to introduce Julia Sbaff, who is not here with me today, here with us today. She's the PhD candidate in Italian Studies at NYU, and her dissertation is on political organizing of street sex work in 1980s Italy. So I think that we can then hear the other people today. So maybe Silvia.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. I am Associate Professor of English at the University for Foreigners of Siena in Italy, and my research focuses on gender and sexuality issues across the 19th and the 20th and the 21st century in British literature and culture.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Michela Baldo. I'm also part of the Queer Caucus of the American Association for Italian Studies. So I'm a lecturer in translation studies at the University of Birmingham, and my main interest, research interest, revolve around the role of translation in Italian queer transfeminist activism. I'm also a practitioner of translation, and I've been translating recently books on queer theories from English into Italian. Thank you.
And then Rodney.
Yeah, my name is Rodney Wilson, and I've been a teacher since 1990 in many different types, secondary, post-secondary, community-based, correctional, English to Spanish speakers, and I'm also the founder of LGBTQ History Month USA in 1994, and in 2021 with Alessio and a wonderful cohort of others, a co-founder of the International Committee on LGBTQ History Months.
Yeah, and we're going to have, a chat together with Rodney today, given that, as you know, April is LGBT History Month Italia. But at the same time, I think it was a very good idea, given that we are the Queer Caucus of the American Association of Italian Studies, to have a conversation with the founder of the LGBTQ History Month US, right? So I think that Silvia might have her first question for Rodney.
Yes, my question is for Rodney, and it is about how did you come up with the idea of a month devoted to LGBT history, and what were the main initiatives you organized to kick it off and to start? Were you alone? Were you a group of people thinking this out? Thank you.
Well, in the United States, we have a tradition that goes back to the 1920s of setting aside a week or a month to highlight or concentrate on a particular group of people. It started with Dr. Carter Woodson in 1926, Negro History Week, because in America, Black history had been ignored, had been deemed irrelevant, wasn't part of the narrative, wasn't written about in our history books. So we've had Negro History Week, which became Black History Month in the 1970s for a long time. We also have Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and so on. So when in 1994, I was a young teacher at a high school in St. Louis, suburban St. Louis, I was teaching American history, and there was no reference at all in an 800-page textbook to LGBTQ people or to any events involving LGBTQ people. I had already been celebrating, acknowledging Women's History Month and Black History Month in February, Black History Month in the USA, Women's History Month in March. And so I thought that was a perfect model and that the time had come for an LGBTQ History Month. Then we called it Lesbian and Gay History Month. Mm-hmm. So I wrote up a proposal about why we should do that, what it means, how it would work, what the purpose would be. And a friend of mine from college, John Du Bois, read it over, the first person to read it, to give me some insight and ideas that might make it a little tighter. And I sent that out to all the known LGBTQ organizations at the time in the USA asking for endorsements, and they began rolling in. You also asked about, was I alone? Initially, in writing the proposal, yes, but then Jonda, my friend, came on board. And then in May of 1994, based on those who had sent in approval of the idea, a belief that the idea was a good one, I put together a national coordinating committee, much like the one in Italy in 2021 to organize their first History Month. And on that board, you had Kevin Jennings and Kevin Boyer, Jessica Greenman, Sarah Lynn Chestnut, Tori Wilson, and I may be forgetting someone, John Du Bois, of course. And we organized the national event. So as with anything, of course, it was a community effort. It was a big effort with lots of people involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. I'm gonna ask you the second question, if it's okay. I wanted to know, what do you think is the impact that the LGBT History Month has had in the US since its first edition, that you mentioned, in terms of general awareness, social practices, teaching activities, and academic research?
I think it has served the purpose that Carter Woodson identified in 1926. It has helped make, in this case, not Black Americans, but LGBTQ Americans part of the narrative, part of the theater of events, is the way Dr. Woodson put it. So it has intentionally and consciously written us back into the narrative, or at least provided an opportunity, especially for academic institutions, secondary schools in the US, grades 9 to 12, like 14 to 18-year-olds, post-secondary in the United States. Our academic calendar here is about mid-August to mid-May, and this falls in October in the USA, so it's perfect for the academic calendar. And I think it's been an assertion of the right of all people to have a history, to have access to that history, to have it recognized, and at least once a year to take out a spotlight and intentionally shine it on those stories, those people, write them back into the narrative, allow them to have their rightful place in the story. And I think it has very well served those purposes. This past October at Syracuse University, for example, in New York, there were 30 events in October at one university for LGBTQ plus History Month. So I think it's been enormously successful, but it did take some time, obviously. This started in '94, pre-internet. I didn't even have an email at the time. And now here we are 30 years later, and it's sort of now grounded in the culture.
Thank you. Very nice to hear. I don't know, you've already basically answered a bit this third question, but if you have anything maybe to add, the question was about what do you think is the aim or the main aim of initiatives like this, such as the LGBT History Month. So if you have anything else to add to what you've already said, maybe.
I think I would just repeat one sentence from the previous answer. It is an intentional assertion of the right of all people, in this case, LGBTQ people, to be part of the story, to be in the narrative, to be part of the textbook. And I think that's the primary purpose. And I think it's served well here and in Italy and Cuba and other locations where it's now traveled.
Thank you.
So Rodney, the next question is mine. So, some LGBT History Months are more structured than others. So how would you describe the LGBT History Months in the US compared to others, right?
In the US, it's much less structured than, for example, in the United Kingdom, which has a wonderful infrastructure that's been built up. Italy is building a wonderful infrastructure. Cuba has an official team of coordinators. Now, when we started in '94, we had our national team. And then in 1995, 96, that team continued planning and preparing. And then we turned it over to the third institution that would house it. It started at Gerber Hart Lesbian and Gay Library and Archives in Chicago, as it was then called, and then to GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, as it was then called, and then to GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. And then in 2006, Equality Forum, which is in Philadelphia, they decided to do a really wonderful series of icons where they picked 31 LGBTQ icons every October since 2006. They're near 500 now, I suppose, and they highlight one each day. But it's not from the top down. It's an idea now that exists in the culture. I'm sure there's a national organizing entity of some kind for Women's History Month and Black History Month, but I really don't know about it. So in the US, because of our federal system with each state having its own ways and each locality and the federal government, it's kind of been diffused here.
Thank you, Rodney.
I'm going to ask the next question. Now there is also an international committee on LGBT History Months. What is it exactly, and how did it start?
Well, I don't know if Alessio has told you, but there would not be an International Committee on LGBTQ History Months if it were not for Alessio. In November 1991, I learned of the Italy initiative because of the announcement they had made in September at the Florence Queer Festival, I think it's called.
Yes.
And I reached out to those who were listed in the article to say, wow, this is awesome. I did something like this back in 1994. If you'd like to talk, let's talk. And we started an email conversation. And indeed, I think the Italy team wanted to have a Zoom call just to kind of go over what my experiences had been. And then at some point I said, we need. And I look back one time, Alessio, I think it was 11 minutes. 11 minutes later, Alessio responds, yes, we need that. And then he and I really started thinking about it, planning it, figuring out who would be on it, how we would do it. But the International Committee is co-founded by everyone who joined us at our first meeting in January 2022. Think about 20 people. We're all equal co-founders. We have equal rights on the committee. The chairship bounces around to the different initiatives. So it's very much something, a committee of equals. But really, if Alessio hadn't responded positively and hadn't given that energy and been a sounding board, it wouldn't exist.
You're too kind, Rodney.
He was the first. Yeah.
You're too kind, but thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. So the next question is mine. So following from what you said about links between the Italian and the US LGBT History Month, I wanted to ask you if you want to elaborate a bit more on the links in general between the LGBT History Month US and other, not only the Italian one, but other European LGBT History Months.
Well, in the past, there weren't many links, actually. I did not know Sue Saunders, who's the co-founder of the UK movement. I did not know the people who started in Hungary in 2013. So we didn't know each other. I mean, some knew each other, of course, particularly in Western Europe, but I didn't know them. And now we know each other. We have this wonderful committee of 30 plus people. We are academics, teachers, researchers, archivists, historians, activists, a bunch of really kind and warm people who love history, who believe that history is really important, and we're working together. So now we have a lot of links. We have a lot of contacts. We know people in New Zealand who are documentarians. We know people in Canada from Italy who are historians. We know everyone now. So I think that linkage is much stronger now than it ever has been. We have a new website up. We have social media up. So we have a way to communicate with those outside of the committee as well. So all of those links are definitely growing and being strengthened. And we really admire and appreciate each other on the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Rodney, this is our, I think, last question. And it's really about what should be the next steps. I mean, what do you think should be the next steps? I think not only of LGBT plus History Month US, but also maybe the next steps of this international committee that we have been working on. And again, I always say you are the heart and the engine of this international committee, right? So what do you think should be the next steps?
Well, you're very kind, Alessio. I thank you for saying that. Well, we want to continue to grow the movement. Right now, we have 19 history months that we've identified and recognized and reached out to in the world. We want that number to continue to grow. I don't know what the UN number is now, about 195 nations, I guess. So we've got 19. We have a lot of growth that's still available for this idea, which I think is really powerful. It's an energetic idea. It provides for people an outlet for what they want to study and how they want to learn about themselves and grow within themselves and be who they can be. And particularly now we're seeing a lot of backlash. In the USA, it's an atrocious amount of backlash. It's actually suffocating and overwhelming for me. And I'm older and I built up all of this reservoir of ability to just keep going. So I'm worried about the under 25 who haven't yet been able to build up that reservoir of strength. But I know there are also backlashes. There's some backlash in Italy. I know there is in the UK and Hungary, of course. So we need to keep working together as an international committee dedicated to the idea that history matters, history is important, and ours should always be part of that story.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rodney. We were great, I think, in terms of time, so that I hope, that many people are going to watch this. So thank you. And I think also Silvia and Michela,
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to meet all of you and to see you again, Alessio.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Rodney. And thank you,
And
Michela
happy History
and
Month, Italy.
Yeah,
everyone.
Exactly. Thank you. We still have a few days, but it's going great, and we're very, very happy about it. So thank you. Thank you again.